A very good afternoon to all of you. In our online session of workshop, today's topic for discussion is DNA sequencing. Let us have a look at the contents of this topic, that is DNA sequencing. Here, first we will be discussing about the introduction of the topic, then the definition, and then the steps involved in DNA sequencing, which are sample preparation, PCR amplification, amplicon purification, sequence pre-preparation, DNA sequencing, data analysis, and methods of DNA sequencing, which is Maxam-Gilbert DNA sequencing method, Sanger DNA sequencing method, automated sequencing method, pyrosequencing method, whole genome shotgun sequencing method, and applications of DNA sequencing. Let's have a look at the basic introduction of DNA sequencing. As it states that DNA sequencing means to determine the order of the 4 chemical building blocks called bases. These bases includes the purines and pyrimidines base pairs, which includes A, C, G, and T, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. These bases provide the underlying genetic basis, that is the genotype, for telling a cell what to do, where to go, and what kind of cell to become, that is the phenotype, that makes up the DNA molecule. So DNA sequencing is the process of determining the nucleic acid sequence and the order of the nucleotide in DNA. See, DNA sequencing has become a fundamental requirement for modern gene manipulation. Knowledge of the sequence of a DNA region may be an end in its own right, perhaps in understanding an inherited human disorder. More importantly, sequence information is a prerequisite for planning any substantial manipulation of the DNA. As a technique in molecular biology have developed so that the isolation and study of a single gene is not just possible but routine. It is now possible to specifically change any given base in a cloned DNA sequence, which has become a basic tool of gene manipulation, and for it simplifies DNA manipulation or DNA sequencing. Now the question should arise, why to perform DNA sequencing, or what is the important or what is the need of performing DNA sequencing? So to that question, the answer is DNA sequencing is a laboratory technique, as we all know, used to determine the exact sequence of bases in a DNA molecule. That is, we can determine or we can calculate or measure or find out the exact base pair sequences present in a DNA molecule, the nucleotide sequences. The DNA base sequence carries the information a cell needs to assemble protein and RNA molecule, and DNA sequence information is important to scientists for investigating the functions of gene. Since the completion of the Human Genome Project, technological improvements and automation have increased speed and lower cost to the point where individual genes can be sequenced routinely, and some labs can sequence well over 1 billion base pairs per year, and an entire genome can be sequenced for just a few $1,000s. Many of these new technologies were developed with support from the National Human Genome Project Genome Technology Program and its Advanced DNA Sequencing Technology Awards. Now let us have a look at the definition. What basically DNA sequencing define? Basically, it's a laboratory technique employed to know the correct DNA sequence by the sequential chemical reaction is known as DNA sequencing. It's a laboratory technique which use processing and computational analysis both as the key process in DNA sequencing. Once the chemical reaction is completed, the machine-generated data are sent to the computer lab, and in the process, the amplification done by each nucleotide is recorded in the form of signals, which are collected by the machine and analyzed on the computer. This is the basic mechanism. The nucleotides are either radio-labeled or fluorescent-labeled. Or we can say the DNA sequence making up in any organisms comprises the basic blueprint of that organism. Now let us have a look at what are the steps involved in DNA sequencing. Basically, steps mentioned below are the generalized representation of DNA sequencing and it may vary from platform to platform. It is not necessary that what steps I have written or explained here in this topic is necessarily in other platforms also. So the steps are: first is sample preparation, that is DNA extraction. We will be extracting the DNA. For DNA sequencing, it is very important to extract the DNA or the isolate from any tissue sample or any source sample. The second step is PCR amplification of target sequence. Basically, amplification refers to the production of one or more copies of a genetic fragment or target sequence, specifically the amplicon. Now let us have a look at the first point, that is sample preparation. Here, the DNA is our starting material, therefore we need to isolate DNA first. From animal, plant, bacterial, plasmid or environmental DNA can be used for it. As the quality of DNA is the major concern in sequencing, we recommend using proteinase kinase or spin column DNA extraction method, which has a high yield. Now, what is the role of proteinase kinase? Let's discuss. Basically, proteinase kinase is commonly used in molecular biology to digest proteins and remove contaminations from preparation of nucleic acid. Addition of proteinase kinase to nucleic acid preparation rapidly inactivates nucleases that might otherwise degrade the DNA or RNA during purification. The next is spin column DNA extraction method. So what is the spin column DNA extraction? Basically, it is a solid phase extraction method to quickly purify nucleic acid. This method relies on the fact that nucleic acid will bind to the solid phase of silica under certain conditions. There are different procedures. We will discuss the main procedure which we use in spin column extraction of DNA. The stage of the methods are lyse, bind, wash and elute. These four steps or these four methods or stages are used in spin column extraction of DNA. That is lysis of cell, binding of nucleic acid to silica gel membrane, washing the nucleic acid bound to the silica gel membrane and elution of the nucleic acid. To lyse, the cell of a sample are processed with a lytic procedure which involves breaking the cell membrane and freeing the nucleic acid. For binding, a buffer solution is then added to the sample along with ethanol or isopropanol. This forms the binding solution. The binding solution is transferred to a spin column and the column is put in a centrifuge. The centrifuge forces the binding solution through a silica gel membrane that is inside the spin column, and if the pH and salt concentration of the binding solution are optimal, the nucleic acid will bind to the silica gel membrane as the solution passes through. And to wash, the flow through is removed and a wash buffer is added to the column. The column is put in a centrifuge again, forcing the wash buffer through the membrane. This removes any remaining impurities from the membrane, leaving only the nucleic acid bound to the silica gel. And the last step is to elute. The wash buffer is removed and an elution buffer or simply water is added to the column. The column is put in a centrifuge again, forcing the elution buffer through the membrane. The elution buffer removes the nucleic acid from the membrane and the nucleic acid is collected from the bottom of the column. It is very important that the good quality of DNA is being extracted, because if not, the good quality of DNA reduces the chances of reaction failure. Consequently, a DNA sample with a 260 by 280 ratio of nearly 1.80 or 1.7 to 1.88 is considered as pure DNA. Now, what the question arises, how we isolate or how we extract the purest form of DNA. The basic criteria for that is that any method of DNA isolation from any sample type should include efficient extraction of DNA from the sample, production of a sufficient amount of DNA for use in downstream processes, and successful removal of contaminants and isolation of high quality and high purity DNA. After extraction of the high quality or high purity DNA, an assay is performed simply to test the purity of the DNA sample or quality control. For this, ultraviolet absorbance can be used to access the purity of the extracted DNA. For a pure DNA sample, the ratio of absorbance at 260 nanometer and absorbance at 280 nanometer, that is 260 by 280 nanometers, is 1.8, and a ratio greater than 1.8 indicates the sample is contaminated with protein or an organic solvent such as phenol, often used during extraction process. The quantification of double-stranded DNA can also be accessed by the qubit assay, which relies on the principle of DNA's selective fluorescent dyes. Through it may be underestimated in DNA extracted after RNA extraction with triazole. DNA quality can be accessed by visualizing on agarose gel. The next step is PCR amplification of target sequence. As amplification is the crucial step in sequencing, here only the gene of interest or the DNA sequence we wish to study is the first amplified. The rest of the DNA is discarded. Nonetheless, in the whole genome sequencing, the entire genome of an organism can be sequenced. Next, a set of flanking primers anneal at the outer region of the DNA sequence of interest. Therefore, unwanted DNA can't amplify. Now, what is a primer? Basically, what are the primers we use in DNA sequencing are, for living organisms, we use solely RNA primer, while in laboratory techniques, biochemistry, or in molecular biology that requires in vitro DNA synthesis, such as DNA sequencing and polymerase chain reaction, usually use DNA primer since they are more temperature stable. Using the standard PCR condition, the amplification process is done 35 cycles, denaturation at 94 degrees Celsius, annealing at 55 degrees Celsius to 65 degrees Celsius, and an extension at 72 degrees Celsius. After the amplification, the PCR product is run on 2% agarose gel along with the DNA ladder. Once the amplification achieved, DNA purification is performed. Now the question arises, what is a DNA ladder? Basically, a DNA ladder is a solution of DNA molecule of different lengths used in agarose or acrylamide gel electrophoresis. It is applied as a reference to estimate the size of unknown DNA molecule that were separated based on their mobility in an electric field through the gel. The next step is amplicon purification. But with that, the question arises why purification is needed. For this, information is very interesting. No one will tell you about it. If you check the purity of the PCR product at 260 and 280 nanometer wavelength, it will always be 1.80 exactly, because the amplicon is the pure DNA fragment. If any contaminants are present in the DNA, amplification will not happen. Then why amplicon purification require? The answer is here. Because unbound primers, primer dimers, unused Taq DNA polymerase, unused DNA templates, and other unused PCR reaction buffer components can abort DNA sequencing. That is why amplicon purification is required. Here, the alcohol purification can't work. We have to purify our PCR product with the spin column PCR amplicon purification kit to achieve maximum purification. After removing debris, the PCR amplicon sent to the sequencing lab. C. To purify amplicon is to reduce the amount of contaminants that can compromise the result of your research and shorten the shelf life of your precious sample. Think of it this way. When you start with a contaminated DNA sample, there is a high probability that you will get erroneous results in your subsequent experimentation. By purifying your DNA sample, you reduce the probability that such things will happen and you can better preserve the quality and purity of your nucleic acid. The fundamental steps involved in the DNA purification or amplicon purification are basically lysating your cell or tissue sample using the most appropriate procedure, that is mechanical disruption, chemical treatment, or enzymatic digestion, and then isolating the nucleic acid from its contaminants and precipitating it in a suitable buffer solution. Alright, the next step is sequencing pre-preparation. Sample pre-preparation is a very crucial step during DNA sequencing. During this step, adapter DNA sequences are ligated on both ends. To the adapter, the primer anneals for doing amplification. The amplification process in sequencing is similar to PCR. However, here the nucleotides are either radio or fluorescent labeled. With it, high fidelity DNA polymerase and other key ingredients are added in the reaction. Now, the question arises is, what is a DNA? So, an adapter or a linker in genetic engineering is a short, chemically synthesized single-stranded or double-stranded oligonucleotide that can be ligated to the end or other DNA or RNA molecule. Double-stranded adapters can be synthesized to have blunt ends to both terminals or to have sticky ends at one end of blunt end at the other. You all know what is the definition of primer, but still I am going to define here in this presentation. The definition of primer is: sequencing primers are used in the context of sequencing a DNA fragment with the intentions of revealing its specific identity. To obtain good sequencing results, high quality primers and templates are important. Thus, when primers are selected, they should be unique to a particular region where we desire to sequence. Let us have a look at the steps involved in sequence pre-preparation. So, the first step for sequence pre-preparation is obviously fragment the genomic DNA. So, basically what happens in this step is we fragment the genomic DNA using a nebulization technique which fragments DNA to less than 800 base pairs in minute using a cost-effective disposable device. Nebulization generates double-stranded DNA fragments that are blunt-ended or comprised of 3' or 5' overhang. In sequence pre-preparation is to perform end repair. In this step, the overhangs resulting from fragmentation into blunt ends using T4 DNA polymerase and E. coli DNA polymerase 1 Klenov fragment, the 3' to 5' exonuclease activity of these enzymes removes 3' overhangs and the polymerase activity fills in the 5' overhangs. Then add A- bases, that is adenine bases, to the 3' end of the blunt phosphorylated DNA fragments using the polymerase activity of Klenov fragment, that is 3' to 5' exo-. This prepares the DNA fragment for ligation to the adapters which have a single thymine base overhang at their 3' end. And the other step includes ligate adapters to the DNA fragments. In this step, adapters are ligated to the end of the DNA fragments, preparing them to be hybridized to a flow cell. The next step is to purify ligation product, and for that the purified product of the ligation reaction is run on a gel to remove all unligated adapters and removes any adapters that may have ligated to one another, and select a size range of template to go on to the cluster generation platform. Last at sequence pre-preparation is enrich the adapter modified DNA fragments by PCR. Here we use PCR to selectively enrich those DNA fragments that have adapter molecules on both ends and to amplify the amount of DNA in the library. The PCR is performed with two primers that anneals to the end of the adapters. Only 18 cycles of PCR are employed, so avoid skewing the representation of the library. After finally pre-preparing the sequencing, now we can finally perform DNA sequencing, and the prepared reaction tubes are placed into the sequencer machine. During the reaction in the sequencer, denaturation, annealing and extension occurs simultaneously. Here, as we are using the labeled nucleotide, the signals produced during the reaction is recorded. That signals of the addition of each complementary nucleotide are recorded by the machine and the data is sent to the computer. All know that DNA sequencing technique is used to determine the nucleotide sequence of DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid. The nucleotide sequence is the most fundamental fundamental level of knowledge of a gene or genome. It is the blueprint that contains the instructions for building an organism, and no understanding of genetic function or evolution could be complete without obtaining this information. Basically, there are two generations of sequencing technology. So the first generation sequencing technology is so-called first generation sequencing technologies, which emerged in the 1970s, included the Maxam-Gilbert method, discovered by and named for American molecular biologist Alan M. Maxam and Walter Gilbert, and the Sanger method or dideoxy method discovered by English biochemist Frederick Sanger. In the Sanger method, which became the more commonly employed of the two approaches, DNA chains were synthesized on a template strand, but chain growth was stopped when one of the four possible dideoxynucleotide, which lacks a 3'-hydroxyl group, become incorporated, thereby preventing the addition of another nucleotide. A population of nested truncated DNA molecule was produced that represented each of the site of that particular nucleotide in the template DNA. The molecules were separated according to the size in a procedure called electrophoresis, and the inferred nucleotide sequence was deduced by a computer. Later, the method was performed by using automated sequencing machine, in which the truncated DNA molecule labeled with fluorescent tags were separated by size within thin glass capillaries and detected by laser excitation. As in next generation sequencing technology, as it says, next generation, massively parallel or second generation sequencing technologies have largely supplanted first generation technologies. These newer approaches enable many DNA fragments, sometimes on the order of millions of fragments, to be sequenced at one time, and are more cost efficient and much faster than first generation technologies. The utility of next generation technologies was improved significantly by advances in bioinformatics that allowed for increased data storage and facilitated the analysis and manipulation of very large data sets, often in the gigabase range, that is 1 gigabase is equals to 10 crore base pairs of DNA. Say that the knowledge of the sequence of a DNA segment has many uses. First, it can be used to find genes, segments of DNA that codes for a specific protein or phenotype. If a region of DNA has been sequenced, it can be screened for characteristic features of genes. For example, open reading frames, that are ORFs, long sequence that begins with a start codon, 3 adjacent nucleotides. The sequence of a codon dictates amino acid production and are uninterrupted by stop codons, except for one at their termination. Suggest a protein coding region. Also, human genes are generally adjacent to so-called CpG islands, that is, clusters of cytosines and guanines, two of the nucleotides that make up DNA. If a gene with a known phenotype, such as a disease gene in humans, is known to be in the chromosomal region sequence, then unassigned genes in the region will become candidates for that function. Second, homologous DNA sequence of the different organisms can be compared in order to plot evolutionary relationship both within and between species. And the third is, a gene sequence can be screened for functional regions. In order to determine the function of a gene, various domains can be identified that are common to protein of similar function. For example, certain amino acid sequences within a gene are always found in protein that span a cell number. Such amino acid stretches are called transmembrane domain. If a transmembrane domain is found in a gene of unknown function, it suggests that the encoded protein is located in the cellular membrane. Other domain characterizes DNA binding protein. Several public databases of DNA sequences are available for analysis by any interested individual. The application of next generation sequencing technologies are vast, owing to their relatively low cost and large scale high throughput capacity. Using these technologies, scientists have been able to rapidly sequence entire genome, whole genome sequencing of organism to discover genes involved in disease and to better understand genomic structure and diversity among species generally. So now, finally, the data analysis. Once the whole genome is sequenced, the result is saved into one unique file format. The inbuilt software provided by the manufacturers basically processed the data and compared it with the available data. The sequence data is compared with other available data by the software to find out variations and other mutations present in a gene. The brief overview of the process is explained in the figure below. As we have already discussed that first we need to prepare the sample by proteinase kinase DNA extraction method or by spin column DNA extraction method, and then DNA amplification or by PCR amplification, which includes DNTPs, DNA forward primers, reverse primer, and TAN DNA polymerase. And then the next step is PCR purification, which includes spin column based PCR purification, and then sequencing pre-preparation, which we have already discussed earlier here in the slides, and denaturation labeling of DNTPs, and then finally the DNA sequencing. It's the process with data analysis. So let us discuss how we analyze the data that we have sequenced. Common to these and other applications of DNA sequencing is the generation of data sets in the order of the gigabytes and comprising millions of read sequences, therefore making sense of high throughput sequences, that is HTS experiments, require substantial data analysis capabilities. Fortunately, dedicated computational and statistical tools and relatively standard analysis workflow exist for most HTS data types. While some of the initial analysis steps are common to most sequencing data types, more downstream analysis will depend on the kind of data and or the ultimate goal of the analysis. Here we will discuss and provide a primer. I will discuss some of the fundamental steps in the analysis of HTS data, and I refer to popular tools that are used in data analysis. With the final step is alignment. With exceptional de novo assembly example, alignment, also referred to as mapping, is typically the next step for the most HTS data types and application. Read alignment consists in determining the position in the genome from which the sequence of the read derived, typically expressed as chromosomes, start ends. Hence, at this step we require the use of a reference sequence to align map the read-ons. The choice of the reference sequence will be determined by multiple factors. For one, the species for which the sequence DNA is derived, while the number of species with a high quality reference sequence available in increasing. This may be still not the case for some less studied organism, and in those cases you may want to align reads to a evolutively close species for which a reference genome is available. For instance, as there is not a reference sequence for the genome of the chiocyte, we can use that of the closely related dog for the read alignment. Similarly, we may still want to align our read to a closely related species for which a higher quality reference sequence exists. For example, while the genome of the gibbon has been published, this is broken into thousands of fragments that do not fully recapitulate the organization of that genome into tens of chromosomes. In that case, carrying out alignment using the human reference sequence may be beneficial. Another factor to consider is the version of the reference sequence assembly. Since new versions are released as the sequence is updated and improved, more importantly, the coordinates of a given alignment can vary between versions. For instance, multiple versions of the human genome can be found in the UCSG genome browser. In any species, I strongly favor migrating to the newest assembly version once that is fully released. This may cause some nuisance during the transition, as already existing resulting will be relative to older versions, but it pays off in the long run. And finally, the final step is from the alignments. I would say that there's not a clear common step after the alignment, since at this point is where each HTS data type and application may differ. A common downstream analysis for DNA sequencing data is variant calling, that is, the identification of position in the genome that vary relatively to the genome reference and between individuals. A popular analysis framework for this application is GATK for single nucleotide polymorphism, that is SNP, or small insertion or deletion sequences. Variant comprising larger chunks of DNA, also referred to as structural variants, requires dedicated calling methods. And with the aligners, I advise selecting the right tool considering key factors like the sort of variants, SNP, indel, or structural variants acceptance by the community, quality of the documentation, and number of the users. Probably the most frequent application of RNA sequencing is gene expression quantification. Historically, reads needed to be aligned to the reference sequence, and then the number of reads aligned to a given gene or transcript was used as a proxy to quantify its expression level. This alignment quantification approach is performed by tools like cufflinks, RSEM, or feature counts. These are all the tools. However, such approach has been increasingly surpassed by newer methods implemented in the software like Callisto and Salmon. Conceptually, with such tools, the full sequence of a read does not need to be aligned to the reference sequence. Instead, we only need to align enough nucleotides to be confident that a read originated from a given transcript. Put it simply, the alignment quantification approach is reduced to a single step. This approach is known as pseudo mapping and greatly increases the speed of the gene expression quantification. On the other side, keep in mind that pseudo mapping will not be suitable for application where the full alignment is needed. Though there are a vast steps which I'm excluding in data analysis and I cannot explain it here only. So let us discuss the different methods used in DNA sequencing. So various methods of DNA sequencing I am explaining here are listed here. First is Maxim and Gilbert method. Second, chain termination method and semi-automated method, automated method, pyrosequencing method, the whole genome shotgun sequencing method, clone by the clone sequencing method, next generation sequencing method. And to understand each methodology in detail, there are some terminology that we need to understand. First is fragment library, that is a collection of the entire strand of the DNA to be sequenced of fragments. Next is gaps. Here the unsequenced regions of the DNA is called a gap. Counting. A continuous sequencing of the DNA assembled. Read, that is the output data came from the sequencer machine to the computer for one particular sequence. And coverage, the number of times the sequencing machine covered the DNA sequence. Let's start with the first method, that is Maxim-Gilbert sequencing method. The Maxim and Gilbert method was developed in 1977. It is also referred to as a chemical cleavage method. By using this method, they had sequenced around 24 nucleotides only. However, their method was published after 2 years of Sanger's method, and the brief principle of the present method is stated here below. Single-stranded DNA is cleaved at the specific location with the help of the chemicals at specific base location, and the fragments of the DNA is then run on the polyacrylamide gel. Obviously, DNA extraction is the first step. After that, the DNA is denatured using the heat denaturation method and single-stranded DNA is generated. The phosphate 5'-phosphate end of the DNA is removed and labeled by the radio-labeled phosphate 32. The enzyme named phosphatase removes the phosphates from the DNA, and simultaneously the kinase adds the phosphate 32 to the 5' end of it. 4 different chemicals are used to cleave DNA at 4 different positions, that is hydrazine, one of the chemicals, and hydrazine sodium chloride NaCl are selectively attack pyrimidine nucleotides, while dimethyl sulfate and piperidine chemicals are used to attack the purine nucleotides. Here you can see in this slide is that hydrazine is used to cut thymine and cytosine combination. Hydrazine sodium chloride is used for cytosine only. Dimethyl sulfate chemical is used basically for adenine and guanine combination, and piperidine is used for guanine combination only. You see here Maxim and Gilbert chemical degradation method. This method is not much popular because it is time consuming and labor intensive. In this method, the DNA molecule can be radio labeled at either 5' end by using polynucleotide kinase or 3' end by terminal transferases. One end of the radio labeled double stranded DNA is removed by using endonucleases. A base is modified chemically. A is for adenine, which is modified chemically, followed by cleavage of sugar phosphate backbone of DNA. No any specific reaction for the 4 base is carried out, except specific reaction to guanine only and purine specific reaction which removes adenine or guanine. A difference in these reaction indicates the presence of adenine. Here, cleavage in the presence of 1 to 2 molarity sodium chloride solution, it works only with cytosine. Differences between these two indicates the presence of thymidine in the DNA sequence, and cleavage of pyrimidines, that is cytosine or thymidine, through hydrazine hydrolysis can be described by the diagrams in further slides. See, partial chemical cleavage of DNA fragments as done above generates the population of radio-labeled molecule extending from radio-labeled terminus to the site of the chemical cleavage. These fragments are of different sizes that represent unique pairs of 5' and 3' cleavage products in the random collection. A complete set is formed by these products and the length of each number is short by 1 nucleotide. These can be separated by gel electrophoresis, and the fragments containing labeled terminus can be observed by autoradiography of the gel, and following the order of the fragments obtained from different digestion, the sequence of nucleotide is deduced and then interpreted. For the cleavage of purines, the mixture is separated in 4 sets, each treated with a different reagent which degrade only guanine or cytosine, or adenine or guanine, or cytosine or thymidine. In one set, DNA is treated with acid followed by dimethyl sulfate, and this causes methylation of adenine at 3' position and guanine at 7' position. Subsequently, addition of alkali OH group and piperidine results in cleavage of DNA and removal of purines, adenine and guanine. Whereas in the cleavage of pyrimidine, similar to the cleavage of purines, pyrimidine, that are cytosine or thymine, is also dideoxynucleotide chain termination method. The requirements are a primer with free 3' hydroxyl group end to the start DNA synthesis, and DNA polymerase and DNTPs. Presence of free 3' hydroxyl group at 3' end in DATP and 2'-3' hydroxyl group in 2'3' DDATP. In 2'3' DDATP, a hydrogen atom is attached at 2' and 3' carbon instead of hydroxyl group. If any of the 4 DDNTPs bind, the chain elongation is terminated. Because the DDNTPs do not have free 3' hydroxyl group at the end, which is required for chain elongation. Therefore, no phosphodiester bond will be formed, and 4 reaction tubes are labeled with A, T, G, and C, each containing single-stranded DNA template. For that, an equal volume of 4 different single-stranded DNA sample is taken into 4 different tubes, each containing 4 different chemicals. The samples are incubated for some time and electrophoresed in the polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis, and the result of the chemical cleavage of 4 different tubes are shown in the figure below. That autobiography is used to visualize the separation of DNA fragments due to the radio-labeled phosphate 32 end of the DNA. The DNA band visualized through autoradiography. Let's have a look at the diagram. Here, labeling of the DNA of the end of the DNA with phosphate 32. This is the sequence which have phosphate 32 at the end of its sequences. Here we have 4 tubes. First tube is containing A plus G combination, and the chemical cleavage is with dimethyl sulfate. This is the chemical which we are using to cleave A and G combination. And in the second tube, chemical cleavage with piperidine, which basically cut and basically reduce the guanine combination, guanine from the sequence. And the third tube, we have chemical cleavage with hydrazine, sodium chloride, which cleaves cytosine from the sequence. And at the last tube, that is the fourth tube, we have chemical cleavage with hydrazine, which cleaves the cytosine and thymidine combination. And the autoradiography of that sequence with the chemically treated sequence is here. For DD-ATPs, these are the bands we followed that we obtain, and DD-GTPs second bands we obtain, DD-CTPs the bands, and DD-TTPs the bands. This Maxam and Gilbert chemical sequencing, DNA sequencing method is more accurate than Sanger sequencing. It's best suitable for DNA footprinting and DNA structural studies. It is also more advantageous over the Sanger method because the purified DNA is directly used for sequencing. Also, other application that I've already discussed earlier for Maxam and Gilbert sequencing methods, and in the present automation time, the present method is used in DNA fingerprinting and genetic engineering studies. Notwithstanding, plenty of disadvantages makes it harder to use regularly. The scalability of it is poor. Only 400 base pairs can be sequenced at a time, and moreover, it is less popular because of the use of harmful radio-labeled chemicals. Now the next method is Sanger sequencing method. Sanger and co-workers developed a chain termination method of DNA sequencing after a few years of the Maxam and Gilbert's method. The method is also known as the first generation DNA sequencing method, which I've already discussed before in this presentation, and in details I've discussed. The chain termination method is also referred to as a dideoxynucleotide sequencing because of the use of the special types of DD-NTPs. Is dideoxynucleotide triphosphates. You see, the DD-NTPs are different from normal DNTPs. It possesses the hydrogen group instead of a hydroxyl group in the DNTPs. Phosphodiester bonds can't form between two adjacent nucleotides due to the absence of hydroxyl groups in DD-NTPs, and the nucleotide chain can't synthesize further, and hence it is known as chain termination method. See, Sanger sequencing is a method of DNA sequencing based on the selective incorporation of chain termination dideoxynucleotides by DNA polymerase during the in vitro DNA replication. After first being developed by Frederick Sanger and colleagues in 1977, it became the most widely used sequencing method for approximately 40 years. It was first commercialized by Applied Biosystems in 1986. More recently, higher volume Sanger sequencing has been replaced by next generation sequencing methods, which I have discussed earlier, especially for large-scale automated genome analysis. However, the Sanger method remains in wide use for smaller-scale projects and for validation of next-generation results. It still has the advantage over short-read sequence technologies in that it can produce DNA sequence reads greater than 500 nucleotides. The process of Sanger sequencing is broadly divided into 3 steps. First is DNA extraction. Using any of the DNA extraction protocol, we can extract the desired DNA which we use to sequence. And then PCR amplification, and using the flanking primers, DNTPs, DDNTPs, stacked DNA polymerase, and PCR buffer. Third is identification of the amplified fragments, that is, using autoradiography, phage, or capillary gel electrophoresis. Then, the process of chain termination is started with the DNA extraction and purification. DNA extraction can be achieved using the proteinase kinase method or the phenol chloroform DNA extraction method, or we can use ready to use silica column based kit method too. The main aim of any DNA extraction method is to achieve the purity nearby 1.8 and quantity over 100 nanograms. In the next step, the PCR amplification is performed by designing 4 different reactions. There are certain reactions in PCR and their modifications, so let's have a look. The reaction 1 is for reaction A for adenine, and which includes Taq DNA polymerase, DATPs, DGTPs, DCTPs, DGTPs and PCR buffer primers. And modification is labeled DDATPs. Whereas in reaction G, that is for guanine, Taq DNA polymerase is used, DATPs can be sequenced, DGTPs sequenced, DCTPs, DGTPs and PCR buffer with primers. And the labeled modification for here is DDGTPs. And the next reaction is reaction for T for thymidine, in which PCR will use Taq DNA polymerase, DATPs, it requires DGTPs, DCTPs, DGTPs and PCR buffer with primers, and modifications are basically done on DDTTPs. The last reaction is for reaction for cytosine, reaction C, and the reaction includes Taq DNA polymerase, DATPs, DGTPs, DCTPs, DGTPs and PCR buffer with primers, and the modifications are basically done on labeled DDCTPs. You see, here in Sanger's DNA sequencing method, each tube contains the same amount of the PCR reagent, but in each tube, extra DDNTPs are added as shown into the table. The flanking primers are such a primers that binds to the region near to our sequence of interest or the sequence what we are going to read. Now in the next step, the Taq DNA polymerase adds the DNTPs to the DNA strand. The high fidelity DNA polymerase is not needed. Normally, Taq DNA polymerase expands the growing DNA strands by the addition of the DNTPs. Interestingly, once it adds the DDNTPs instead of DNTPs, the chain expansion is stopped or terminated, and the termination process is complete in 4 different tubes for 4 different DDNTPs. For example, in the DDATP tube, it terminates the chain at all positions where DATPs are going to bind. And then the amplified PCR products are loaded onto the polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. The DNA fragments migrates into the gel based on the size of the fragments. The smaller fragments run faster towards the positive charges than the larger fragments. And before the page run, the amplified DNA fragments are further denatured by heat depending upon the type of labeling. The gel is then analyzed under UV light or X-ray film. Here is the diagram of Sanger sequencing method with 4 tubes and different purines and pyrimidines based sequences. And you see, reading the Sanger sequencing results properly will be depend on which of the 2 complementary DNA is of interest and what primer is available. If the 2 strands of DNA are A and B, and strand A is of interest, but the primer is better for strand B, the output fragments will be identical to strand A. On the other hand, if strand A is of interest and the primer is better for strand A, then the output will be identical to strand B. Accordingly, the output must be converted back to strand A. So, if the sequence of interest reads TACG and the primer is best for that strand, the output will be ATGC and therefore must be converted back to TACG. However, if the primer is better for complementary strand, जैसे कि ATGC, then the output will be TACG, which is the correct sequence. In short, before starting, you need to know what you are targeting and how you are going to get there. Now let's have a look at the advancements of Sanger sequencing. You know, the Sanger sequencing is the gold standard method for research as well as in the diagnosis nowadays, especially because of its easy setup and high reproducibility. Its automation has done easily Traditionally, the results are interpreted on page manually, but now the scenario is changed. The process is fully or partially automated. In this method, what basically happens is a detector detects the fluorescent signals each time when the chain is terminated. Further, the signals are recorded and analyzed computationally. The computational software generates various fluorescence peaks depending upon the amount of fluorescence emitted. The hypothetical illustration of the Sanger sequencing results are shown in the figure below. See, if you look at the computational software which has generated various fluorescence peak depending upon the amount of fluorescence emitted, in this diagram you can see different colors of fluorescence where yellow, blue, green, orange, purple, all the kinds of fluorescence which we have already tagged in the desired sequence is being shown in this figure. Now, how to interpret the page results for Sanger sequencing? See, this section is very important. I will teach you how you can interpret the results of the sequencing, although it is a type of overview only. First, let's have a look at the results of Sanger sequencing from page. Here's the image which is showing DNA sequences and the desired sequenced already from Sanger sequencing method, and now let's interpret it. See, from the figure above, the principle of the electrophoresis stated that the smaller DNA fragments migrate faster than larger ones. So the fragments on the positive side is the smallest one. Start reading the sequence from that. The first point is, in sequencing the DNA is to match the size of DNA. If the bands obtained in gel and the nucleotide sequence of our DNA is similar, the reaction is completed properly. For instance, if your sequence length is 16, then 16 bands must be present into the gel. And then start reading from the bottom. The DNA sequence starts with C as the last fragment of DNA terminated with DDCTP. Arrange the sequence shown in the figure accordingly. You see, in this way you can completely interpret the sequence in Sanger sequencing. Now the next method is automated DNA sequencing. So basically, automated DNA sequencing, the semi-automated Sanger sequencing method, is based on the principle of Sanger's method with some minor variations. Okay, instead of the 4 different reactions, the automated DNA sequencing carried out in the single tube, which means on a gel the DNA runs in a single lane only. Here, in the semi-automated DNA sequencing, the fluorescent labeled set of primers are used instead of ddNTPs. Thus, 4 different primers give 4 different peaks. And the capillary gel electrophoresis method is practiced for separating each and every single fragment precisely. We can sequence more than 300 samples in a single run on an automated DNA sequencing platform. Wow! The capillary electrophoresis used to separate DNA molecule on the basis of the size. It is powerful enough to separate single base pair fragments also. Now, the next step is pyrosequencing method. Okay, this method is based on the detection of the pyrophosphate released during the chain reaction of nucleotide addition. Here, the order of the nucleotide is determined by the PPI, that is pyrophosphate, released during the joining of 2 adjacent nucleotide, that is 3-hydroxyl group, 5-phosphate group. In contrast with other methods, instead of a single polymerase, 2 additional enzymes are required in the pyrosequencing method. The 3 enzymes are DNA polymerase without exonuclease activity, luciferase, and sulfurylase. All the 3 enzymes work in a sequential manner for the detection of the PPI, that is phosphorylate. The real-time polymerase activity monitoring allows the detection of the released phosphorylate in a cascade of the enzymatic reaction. The pyrosequencing method is more accurate than the Sanger sequencing, which has the capacity to add up to 500 nucleotides. The major advantage of pyrosequencing is the speed of the reaction. Now the next method is whole genome shotgun sequencing method. Yet another modification of the Sanger's chain termination method, and is the whole genome shotgun sequencing method. The principle of the shotgun is the same as Sanger's method, once again, similar principle, but one additional step of the DNA fragmentation allows to read multiple fragments here. This method is faster and cheaper than the previous techniques. Gene or chromosomal mapping and tedious enzymatic reaction steps are not required in the shotgun sequencing method. It has the power to sequence the whole genome of an organism, more time required to sequence the complex genomes such as humans and animals. And at last, let's discuss the applications of DNA sequencing. Okay, so DNA sequencing has become a key technology in many areas of biology and other sciences such as medicine, forensic, and anthropology. Yes, of course, we have already discussed it. In molecular biology, sequencing is used to study genome and the proteins they encode. Information obtained using sequencing allows researchers to identify changes in genes, association with diseases, and phenotypes, and identify potential drug targets. Since DNA is an informative macromolecule in terms of transmission from one generation to another, DNA sequencing is used in evolutionary biology also to study how different organisms are related and how they evolved. Traditional Sanger sequencing and next generation sequencing are used to sequence viruses in basic and clinical research, as well as for diagnosis of emerging viral infections, molecular epidemiology of viral pathogens, and drug resistant testing. Viral sequencing can be used during epidemics to determine the origins of an outbreak. Another application of DNA sequencing is in the field of metagenomics, which involves identification of an organism present in a body of water, sewage, dirt, debris filtered from the air, or swab samples from organisms. Knowing which organisms are present in a particular environment is critical to researcher in ecology, epidemiology, microbiology, and other fields. Sequencing enables researchers to determine which type of microbes may be present in a microbiome. Medical technicians may sequence genes or theoretically full genome from patients to determine if there is a risk of genetic disease. This is a form of genetic testing, though some genetic tests may not involve DNA sequencing. Also, DNA sequencing may be useful for determining a specific bacteria to allow for more precise antibiotics treatment, hereby reducing the risk of creating antimicrobial resistance in bacterial population. DNA sequencing can be and may be used along with DNA profiling method for forensic identification and paternity testing. DNA testing has evolved tremendously in the last few decades to ultimately link a DNA print to few decades to ultimately link a DNA print to what is under investigation. The DNA patterns in fingerprints, saliva, hair follicle, etc. uniquely separate each living organisms from another. Testing DNA is a technique which can detect specific genome in a DNA strand to produce a unique and individualized pattern. Thank you so much all for listening to this lecture. Because of time bondage, we cannot discuss many numerous amount of applications of DNA sequencing, but I hope that you have got the idea of what DNA sequencing actually is. Thank you so much.